Hello, welcome one, welcome all. This is Inconsistency, and I am your host, Jason Gutierrez. So I've been on a bit of a hiatus. I did a little bit of reading on the way. And I'm hoping that my show sounds significantly better than it did before, and I'm hoping to have improved, and I'm hoping to make a better show in the future. Right off the bat, I'd like to say I appreciate anybody who's listening to this. Might have been a bumpy ride. I know I haven't been exactly the most consistent uploader, but bear with me. It's all a work in progress. Tell me if you like the music going on in the intro. Otherwise, I can start cutting it short. It's been a newsworthy couple of weeks, I suppose. A lot of news about Twitter. A lot of conservative bannings, a little bit of gun control stuff. We can hit all that. Right off the top, I want to hit the big one, I think. I will talk about Joe Rogan, the powerful Joe Rogan experience. Seems like he more and more is becoming the news himself. So he was... Okay, so the whole story is Joe Rogan had Jack Dorsey on the show to do a one-on-one interview, and they did a show. It was a pretty standard, unexciting, uneventful interview, in which Joe basically asked Jack, how is it basically to run the biggest thing since sliced bread? Basically, how do you run a multinational, multi-billion-dollar industry, and how is it being the boss of that? And it was pretty boring, but Joe then faces backlash from a bunch of conservative, and not only conservative outlets, just a lot of people who've been banned, who feel that they've been unduly banned or unfairly banned, and they were all up in arms. So Joe and Jack, to his credit, they get together, they talk about it, and Jack, he says, okay, we can do it. So Joe explains to Jack what's going on. Jack says, okay, I will come back on. I will bring a representative, because Jack says that he doesn't have much to do with the bannings. He says, I will have a representative who is experienced, who does work in this department, somebody who's in charge of this, somebody who would have the information. And Joe apparently got Tim Pool, who, I'll be honest, I don't know a bunch about Tim Pool. I think he's kind of a freelance reporter type of guy. I believe he's worked for Vice. He seems to be just a journalist, I would assume. I think he's a left-wing guy. Apparently, I believe he's a Bernie bro, to anybody who seems there. But he seems to be very in favor of free speech, and he was actually in a very good place to put he was in a very good position to fight the power in the situation. And then Jack's representative, her name is Vijaya Gadi, I believe is her name. I might be mispronouncing it, and I apologize to her. And in this thing, a couple of things happened. There were some pretty important news pieces, but I'll kind of go in chronological order. It didn't take long for Tim to ask, why is it that certain people get away with harassing and certain people don't? It seems weird to talk about it. I didn't pull up clips, and I don't know if I could play Joe Rogan's clips on this without getting pulled down. But I feel like Vijaya and Tim, who were the main ones that were getting into the real meat and potatoes of the subject, were saying that, Tim brought up the whole dead naming and misgendering rule, in which Twitter says if you dead name somebody or misgender them on purpose, they say it isn't just speech, but it has to be targeted harassment. But it is a policy that you are not allowed to purposely misgender someone or dead name them. Dead naming being calling them the name. Once someone transitions, the name they used to go by no longer exists, and to call them that is to dead name them, which is a form of these new microaggressions. And Vijaya proceeds to say, well, we made this rule for because we have this research that suggests that transgender people have high suicide rates because they are harassed and and they are because they are harassed, and she believes that basically they're doing that to protect the trans community. And then Tim, he rebuts and he says, well, this is on its face um, this is on its face biased. This is left leaning, and Vijaya kind of dodged it. This was a theme throughout the whole thing. I think Vijaya very much dodged it. I will say, to Jack's credit, I believe that he was genuinely curious. I think he seemed to be genuinely interested in what Tim had to say. And when Tim explained that that rule is inherently left leaning, Jack said he did it for the research, but he seemed surprised and puzzled by it. So I feel like it was a confirmation of Twitter's left leaning bias and how they ban mostly conservatives. And there was another very interesting thing that happened. So let me go back to Jack for a second, because I believe that Jack is fine. Because I saw Jack, he was very passionate in that he wants Twitter to be able to provide a platform for speech for the most people around the world. I feel like he is somebody I feel Jack is so in his vision. He's so busy creating this vision that he's not seeing what the people under him are working and how this is being used. And I believe that's what this whole thing is going to. But Tim brought up after that how this is becoming a real problem, that it's not just Twitter. This is becoming a much larger thing where it's basically the Chinese social system, where in China they have a rating system for the citizens that rates you based on like what you buy, I guess friendliness. It bases your entire social life, and that gives you certain privileges or takes away certain privileges based on the results of that. It's a social credit score, they call it, basically. So just imagine the same idea of like, well, if you missed a payment, it lowers your credit score, whatever. It's, you were rude, you yelled at a police officer, it lowers your social score, or whatever. Or you said something racist, it lowered your social score. And that's a reality in China, and it seems as though it's becoming a reality in the United States. The example that he brought up that is actually very scary, that I was going to talk about last week, but I felt it was too new and it wasn't very much corroborated. But now we have a second case of it happening, and this is actually a very, very terrifying situation. Chase Bank shuts down a lady. One second. Chase Bank shuts down Lady Alchemy creator and Trump supporter Martina Markota's bank account. All right. So I'm not very aware of what Miss Martina Markota does. I know she's Lady Alchemy, or like she started it. She does a kind of burlesque, artsy. I don't know. I've seen very, very little of her. But okay, so she now works for the Rebel. So Lady Alchemy creator, Rebel media personality, and performance artist Martina Markota had her bank account shut down by Chase. In an interview with Big League Politics, Markota showed them a letter where Chase stated, "After a recent review of your account, we have decided to end our relationship with you." I don't know why that's trying to play. Markota told Big League Politics that the account shut down by Chase Bank was associated with her Indiegogo campaign for the Lady Alchemy graphic novel, which raised over $34,000. Martina revealed she called Chase Bank to determine why her account was being closed. They refused to tell me why, she added. They said they have the right to end our relationship and not tell me why. This is perfect. I mean, that's reasonable for a bank to say. I feel like they're within their right to do this, but it seems scummy. Martina revealed she called Chase. Markota told Big League Politics she believes the account was shut down over her politics and the fact that she is a Donald Trump supporter. Markota provided us with a statement concerning her Indiegogo, noting that the crowdfunding platform is allowing her to change banks. I received a letter saying that the bank is going to end its relationship with me, and I didn't know why. I called them that they can't tell me why they are shutting it down. They refused to tell me, and when I have complained about it, they said that they have the right to close my account without telling me why. When I saw other white ringers / conservatives getting their Chase accounts closed, I was then convinced that it was political. I was concerned over my Indiegogo campaign. Luckily, Indiegogo will allow me to change banks, but in the meantime, I have to transfer a lot of funds and sort out all new information. You can still contribute to the Indiegogo campaign. Okay. So now you can say that this is just her being a conspiracy theorist. Oh, look at this. We have it's becoming a pattern. And the pattern, very much like Twitter seems to be biased one way. And it's not towards the left. Markota isn't the first public figure to have their account closed with Chase Bank. Enrique Tarrio, the chairman of the Proud Boys fraternal organization, had his personal Chase account shut down at the beginning of this month. Like Markota, no reason was given, just a letter stating that by April 1st he has to shut down his Chase accounts. Just a coincidence. And by the way, so Miss Markota, I guess there seems to be a common theme between Gavin McInnes, Enrique Tarrio, and Miss Markota here, because they've both, they have loose affiliations with them. The Rebel, Gavin McInnes having worked for the Rebel a long time ago. If for those who don't know, the Rebel is basically Canada's Breitbart, right wing. Just a right-wing publication from Canada. So they all seem to be connected at the hip of Gavin, because Gavin was, for those who don't know, the founder of the Proud Boys, who, this kind of keeps everything in this circle that we're weaving. They also brought up that the Proud Boys have had all of their accounts banned. Anyone associated with the Proud Boys was banned from Twitter, and yet Antifa remains on Twitter. They have sex, they organize, they dox people. Tim gave a case where they were doxing police officers and ICE agents and telling them they were giving their home addresses and all of these things and just posting them online for, by any means necessary, as they would say. But anybody, okay, so apparently now the Proud Boys chairman is getting his account banned at the same time that Miss Markota's is. And then One American News Network reports that Iraq war veteran and pro-Trump supporter Joe Biggs had his bank account at Chase Bank closed. However, Biggs would tell One American News Network Jack Posobiec that following a number of veterans threatening to close their Chase Bank accounts, they offered to give him a new account. Despite offering him a new account, Biggs states he never received an explanation from Chase as to why his account was shut down, and he decided to take his business elsewhere. Other conservative media figures have faced similar deplatforming. Maybe the most well-known is InfoWars host Alex Jones, who has removed from multiple platforms, including Facebook, Twitter, Stitcher, Apple, and others. Activist Laura Loomer has also seen her Twitter account suspended, and she's also been banned by PayPal. Loomer is also banned from ride-sharing services Lyft and Uber. Huh. What? Wait a second. I didn't know that. That's crazy. You can't get a ride? Hold on. We're going to go on this rabbit hole. Laura Loomer banned from Uber and Lyft after anti-Muslim tweet storm. Let's see. Conservative commentator Laura Loomer was banned from using Uber and Lyft after she posted a series of anti-Muslim tweets following the terrorist attack in... What? Following an attack? Her ride-hailing service Lyft confirmed Thursday that her account had been deactivated. That blame, okay. A representative also was banned permanently. Someone needs to not. So she's quoted as saying, "Someone needs to create a non-Islamic form of Uber or Lyft because I never want to support another Islamic immigrant driver," Loomer tweeted, tagging both companies in the post. Wow, that's a bit of a rough statement, but I suppose. Wow, she's 24. She's just, I'm going to sue everyone. So hours later, she retweeted reports that she'd been banned from both ride-sharing services. The 24-year-old has responded to the ban by announcing that she will be taking legal action against both companies. Oh, boy. That tribeman trying to just sue it. I'm going to sue everyone. Like, I don't know. I guess that's weird, but I suppose they have the right to do that. I'm actually a lot less bothered by that, but it is a little funny because that's the old stereotype of, like everybody who drives used to be a cab, but now everybody that's driving Uber or Lyft is an Islamist in Miss Loomer's world. Publisher Vox Day even saw this is back to the people who have had their accounts shut down. Vox Day even saw his Arkhaven Comics Indiegogo campaign for Alt Hero Q shut down. Okay. All right. So what we have here, and this is a very recent development, and it seems terrifying to me. We have now the case of banks. And, well, we now have the case over multiple platforms of conservatives not only being banned from their speech, but now they're being barred from being able to make a living. They're taking food out of people's mouths. And how far are we going to take this? This is a scary territory. This is very scary territory. When we have people, it's the old saying, they came for the homeless and I did nothing and it wasn't, and I did nothing, and then they came for the Christians and I said nothing, and then they came for the Jews and I said nothing, and then when they came for me, there was no one to stand up. So look, at some point, what are we going to do? And now these people have no chance to make money. And if they're getting banned from Twitter, they have no chance to even speak on their own defense. We've gone way past Orwellian. We've gone way past 1984, where it's just like, it's a soft form of exile. It's just a digital exile. And it gets really, really crazy when you really take into when you take this to the full extent of, like, where does it stop? I don't see it that way. I see it's only going one way, and it seems to be very scary. I don't know how this country sticks together. It's funny, even on the very show that I was talking about earlier, the show between Joe and Tim and Jack Dorsey and Vijaya. Tim ended it off by saying, "Yeah, I just don't see how this is gonna." Or this might have been Tim and Dave Rubin. I'm sorry. I'm plugging everybody. But Tim was basically saying that he doesn't see this going any way except a civil war. And I am agreeing with him. I see it that way as well. And I think that the real catalyst that'll bring things to violence is on its way in the form of gun control. I believe that we have so many things that we as a people can't get together on, that we can't agree with. And this is putting us in a lot of danger. Give me 1 second to pull this up. All right, so this is in Illinois. There was a bill passed. There was a bill introduced by a Mr. Senator Michael Hastings, who has introduced legislation to create a gun seizure regime that would eventually apply to those who have simply failed to renew. Okay. All right. So, in Illinois, let me see. Give me 1 second. In Illinois, they have been passing laws from the Aurora shooting that happened recently that I covered 2 episodes, I believe. They found that he was not supposed to have weapons on him. His void card had been revoked. He had he had lost his privileges to own. Well, no, I won't say privileges. He had been revoked his right to own a firearm because firearm owning is not a. Let's see when this was. That was January 2017. Sorry, doing everything on the fly here. Okay, so after the Aurora shooting, the shooter, he wasn't allowed to own a firearm. So of course, like I said, within weeks. Let me see. WQAD. Okay, there we go. Here's an article. All right. So, Illinois bill seeks to connect gun data, avoid mass shootings.
Should have worked and didn't. There are possibly federal databases that aren't.
Sorry, let's go right back.
Database made by a system that should have worked and didn't. There are possibly federal databases that aren't talking to each other. There are state databases that can't talk to the federal databases. Otherwise, this person would have been caught.
I submitted a amendment to Senate Bill 44, which helps fix the national criminal background system. So what it does is it makes municipalities mandatory reporters and to the state police, and the state has to report felons, misdemeanors, people who have domestic violence. If you have any issues at all, it has to be reported up. So in the situation like Aurora, the state police missed the felony, and that's unexcusable. If you put garbage in, garbage comes out.
Made.
Ugh. Oh, well, that's not what I wanted. Come on. Oh, these guys have a messy little browser. But okay, so what the man was saying sounded reasonable. We may have to go back just a tiny bit to him. So what he was saying is it sounds reasonable enough in that, oh, okay, well, we need to have everybody talk to each other and everything that because the cops missed the felony. It's like, well, no, you failed first. This is a problem that I have very much with the police, especially, or with the government in general, especially when it deals to large emergencies, very big deals. They tend to do this where they say, oh, we failed here, thus we need more authority. We made, like, this didn't go the way we thought it would. This did not work, thus we need more. The biggest example I would have is anytime there's a natural disaster, we always talk about raising money for FEMA because they failed to do so. Like they failed to assist the people like they were supposed to. Like in Katrina, it was just a shit show, for lack of better words. It was awful. People, it took weeks to get people out of where they had to go. People didn't have food for months. It was just terrible. And then the first thing they say is, well, that shows that we need more funding for FEMA. No, that shows that you're being inefficient. That shows that something needs to be done. Somebody needs to be fired, and we need to figure out what's going on before we just say, here's a blank check, here's money, just throw money at the problem. That can't be the solution. The same way, just throw power and just throw centralization at the issue is also not the thing. Also, this begins to worry me that they're making they're making a larger web of people that have to talk to the feds. They're making that larger web, and all they have to do is then include things like your doctor, your spouse, your kids. And how far do we have to go before that's, it's a very slippery slope that needs very little before it goes out of control. But on the front, it always sounds reasonable. That's the thing with government. They always know how to be like, well, it's for your safety. So make sure you stay safe.
The felony. And that's unexcusable. If you put garbage in, garbage comes out. If you put great information in, great information comes out. It's good to have a comprehensive approach to following up on people who have criminal backgrounds that shouldn't have firearms. This is what this bill does. It fixes NICS so people have a great information source on their backgrounds, whether they're criminals or not. It's good to have.
Oh, come on, get this out of here.
A comprehensive approach to following.
Upon revocation of a person's, all right, this is the bill. Upon revocation of a person's firearm owner's identification card, the Department of State Police shall provide notice to the person, confiscate the person's firearm, his firearms, ammunition that are on his possession, and 3, report the name and other identified of that person to the National Criminal Check. That okay, so this is giving the authority to people. This seems to be a bill proposing to give the authority to the police to come to your house once your firearm owner's identification card is revoked or denied. So basically, as soon as that lapses, as soon as your Ford card is not valid, they have the authority to now come to your house and take it. I understand. One more time. Sounds reasonable. Well, of course, you're not supposed to own guns, so why we need to take your guns away? Well, do you or do you not respect your home? That's actually, I believe, the Fourth Amendment, and I believe that's actually a really, really very underrated amendment, where it's your right not to cordon soldiers. So basically, it's basically the right for you. If a soldier comes, they can't demand to just come into your home. They can't take over your house. You are not obligated in any way, shape, or form to allow the government agents into your home, which I'm assuming, if the bill was written, was a thing at one point. But bigger than just the way that's written and the practical nature of that bill, what that is saying is that your house is yours. That's your property rights, is that the government does not have the authority over your house. Also, of course, the illegal search and seizures and your right to privacy and all of that are also, they're both intertwined in this case of why we have made the system of the police cannot come into your house without a search warrant. And those search warrants are granted by judges. We have put all of these things in place to make the system inefficient. And then they blame it on that inefficiency and the fact that, we don't have authority, we don't have power. We need to supersede this power so that we can keep people safe. But meanwhile, all they're going to do is just eventually, who knows what they're going to do. You've had weapons for, okay, what rules are we putting in? And then now they start making a database, and it just goes one step further and one step further and one step further. Also, we need search warrants to be a thing. Otherwise, there's no defense against SWAT raids. There's no defense for anything. I mean, come on. If we allow everybody to be searched upon, then there will be nowhere for Anne Franks to hide. And I know that's the extreme example of the government coming down to shut people down, but that's where it happens. If we don't respect your right to own your home and not be swatted, which we haven't respected for a long time in this country, but if we give the police the authority to just come into one's homes, we're going to end up with a lot of people dead or in danger. And the thing is, when I say that there's a civil war coming, I say there's no way for there not to be, because the left is going to extend these rules further and further. And eventually there are going to be people that do not want to let them go. And what happens when you try to take something from somebody that doesn't want to give it? Conflict. And now when that thing is a gun, gunshots is what results from that.
Up on people who have criminal backgrounds that shouldn't have firearms. This is what this bill does. It fixes NICS, so people have a great information source on their backgrounds, whether they're criminals or not.
The argument that FOID is necessary really doesn't follow through with this. FOID is simply still a redundancy in current law. It is an infringement on my Second Amendment right to have to pay to exercise that right.
I am 100% in agreement with this man. I feel like the FOID card is actually that on its face is already an infringement, and because you have your FOID card revoked for whatever reason, then they have the authority to take it. It seems like, so you already are impeding my right, and because and then now that you've decided to no longer want to grant me that privilege in their mind, now you just have the authority to also come into my home and take my possessions.
A redundancy in already federal law.
I just want to make sure that all this works. I don't want to waste my time. I don't want to waste other people's times. And I want to fix the system so we don't have another Aurora. That's the most important thing.
Okay, that's the most important thing. You would think so. That's an easy sell for you to make. That's the most important thing, for everyone to be safe. Safety first. We need everyone to be safe first. To some people, that's not. I believe to some people that safety is the first. But the problem is we also have people that believe freedom is first. And a big step in freedom is owning a firearm. Or, to word it more properly, to have freedom, you need to be able to defend yourself. And to defend yourself, you should be able to be armed however it makes you feel comfortable. Whether that be nunchucks, whether that be 9mm, you should be able to arm yourself and defend yourself as you see fit. And the thing is, there's two sides to this argument, and the two sides are literally, we're gonna take them. We don't want you to have them. I want to have them. There's no real middle ground in that situation. And when the laws keep coming out, and the laws are basically like sick 'em, and by sick 'em I mean put the police on them, throw the squads at them, we want these weapons by any means necessary. By any means necessary includes violence. And this, once again, going back to the whole Joe Rogan thing, they were asking, well, Tim Pool asked Vijaya and Jack, why aren't Antifa banned from Twitter? Well, anybody, if you want to jump down, if you're willing to if you're willing to make a couple assumptions, one assumption being that Twitter leans left, that's pretty much the biggest assumption, which is pretty hard to deny. That's why. It's simply because Antifa they're leftists. Plain and simple. That's it. They fight the right, so they're on our side. And if you're willing to accept that they're there, I find it astounding that Antifa, who's far more violent than the right is, even the worst of the right, even in Charlottesville, where it was the most deplorable of the alt-right and the worst of them all put together in one thing, you end up with all of one dead girl. Now, I understand that's terrible. But if you look at that situation, the protesters the police basically shoved all of the alt-right into a mob of Antifa protesters. Well, and protesters and Antifa, and just a large, they created a mess. But what I'm saying is, when in the worst situation of right-wing, I won't like it's hard, in the worst of what you could call right-wing, the worst of their politics, the worst event that you could give in recent history on the right wing being evil and violent, you can come up with Charlottesville, and that's one dead girl. There was a whole bunch of assaults and things, but that was all just fights between the Antifa or rowdy protesters. That's just fights from there. But anytime you see conservatives speaking, you had the bike lock basher incident where they were going to, the professor, he was an actual professor. He was going around and he was hitting people over the head with bike locks, people getting beat all over the place. I just showed on the last episode that man getting assaulted for just having a Turning Point USA, the Turning Point USA recruiter. Just being a conservative on college campuses makes you liable to be punched. At some point, the right wing, and I'm talking about all of the macho, everything the left hates, the jock, muscular, straight white male, toxic masculinity gun toter, eventually their patience is going to wear out. And once that does, it's going to be an explosion. Personally, I hope Texas secedes, or I hope New Hampshire secedes. Shout out to the Free State Project. All you Free Staters, I hope you are the first to secede out of the union. I hope you beat Texas, and I hope they follow suit. They have that whole live free or die attitude, and eventually there's no way that we're not gonna. I think best case scenario we succeed. Worst case is some type of civil war. But the problem, and the problem is the left gets away with their violence. This is another story that Tim Pool brought up in that same in the interview with Joe Rogan, and this is actually a story that escaped me. But it really shows you the fact that this escaped me, and I don't think anybody's ever heard of, shows that the bias seems to run a certain way. Man wearing a "Smash the Patriarchy and Chill" shirt involved in fatal Oregon school shooting. In a school, January 27th. Didn't even know about it. Warning: the footage depicted in this article might be of a disturbing nature to some viewers. Now, I'm not gonna do that. I'm all right. I don't want to give this man's name or anything. Okay. The body camera footage of 2 Eugene, Oregon police officers shows the fatal struggle that led to the death of one man. Okay. Yeah, I'm not going to say his name. So the man was at his child's school when police confronted him. He enrolled his daughter at Cascade Middle School without notifying her mother, who had custody, to make the decision where she received her education. When confronted by police officers, Landeros became standoffish and refused to leave the school grounds. Eventually, the police officers told the man that he was under arrest and tried to apprehend him for refusing to leave. The 2 officers and the man got into a scuffle during the struggle to apprehend him. During the struggle to apprehend the man, he pulled out a pistol from his holster and aimed it at one of the police officers and fired. The bullet just missed him. While continuing to struggle, the man continued to fire his gun with his daughter nearby as bullets ricocheted off the pavement. Eventually, one of the police officers fired at the man, killing him. After his vehicle was searched, he was found to have another pistol and copious amounts of ammunition. Why didn't this go all the way around? Why wasn't this seen? If it was a right winger, if it was any type of, we still hear about Charlottesville. Charlottesville is still brought up as all the time. Just terrible, awful Nazis killed a girl. This man, yeah, he didn't shoot he didn't kill anyone, but why did this story just go nowhere? Why did no one hear of this? It's insane. I didn't see any new legislation passed for this one. Just seems a bit weird. Also, this was Portland. I believe the gun control laws are pretty strict in Portland. Portland's a pretty leftist area. I'd have to check on that, but I think Portland is a little, or Oregon. Portland I know is a leftist city. Oregon might have a little more lax gun laws. So I think that's pretty much all I have as far as the Joe Rogan Twitter situation. It seems, so to wrap that up, and I have one more story to bring up after that. To wrap that up, it just seems like we have a very big bias, and it's all pushing leftists, and the sides are drifting further and further apart, and then the right is, they're not only are they losing the ability to speak on what they believe, they're losing their ability to make a living. And that's a problem. And there are people that would complain about dark money, and they would say that you can't fund these things and all of that. But I believe we have some real hypocrites on the left. And one of the newest ones to come out as full-blown hypocrite, this is also a story that I had read a couple weeks ago. So I had seen this breaking a couple weeks ago, and I didn't exactly know what to make of it. I thought, it's AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She, I know she's under attack constantly by the right, and rightfully so. She's constantly, because she's a dummy, so she's constantly in the media, constantly being berated for being a fool. So I thought it might just be, people coming out to attack her. I didn't give it much mind. I said, let's wait some time. But Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's chief of staff ran $1 million slush fund by diverting campaign cash to his own companies. Okay, so Miss Ocasio-Cortez seems to, as much as she talks about dark money and all of these things, it seems as though she is making a lot of money And she's becoming quite wealthy quite quickly, and she's been breaking the rules quite a bit as far as these laws go on campaign finance laws and all the for all her socialist ways. She seems to be making a lot of money on the side, and she seems to fight dark money by collecting dark money. Well, let's read on to the story. Two political action committees funded by Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's top aide funneled over $1 million in political donations into two of his own private companies, according to a complaint filed with the Federal Election Commission on Monday. The cash transfers from the PACs, overseen by Saikat Chakrabarti, the freshman Socialist Democrats chief of staff, run counter to her pledges to increase transparency and reduce the influence of dark money in her politics. Chakrabarti companies appear to be... What am I hearing? Why is that way? Okay. Companies appear to have been set up for the sole purpose of obscuring how the political donations were used. The arrangement skirted reporting requirements and may have violated the $5,000 limit in contributions from federal PACs to candidates, according to the complaint filed by the National Legal and Policy Center and Government Watchdog Group. Campaign finance attorneys described the arrangement as really weird and an indication that there's something amiss. They said there was no way of telling where the political donations went, meaning they could have been pocketed or used by the company to pay for off-the-books campaign operations. PACs are required to disclose how and when funds are spent, including for expenditures such as advertisements, fundraising emails, donations to candidates, and payments for events and to vendors. The private company to which Chakrabarti transferred the money from the PACs are not subject to those requirements. The complaint names Ocasio-Cortez and Chakrabarti, I can't say that name, Chakrabarti. As respondents, it asks the FEC to investigate and audit the two PACs, saying that they were engaged in an elaborate scheme to avoid proper disclosure of campaign expenditures. Tom Anderson, director of the National Legal and Policy Center's Government Integrity Project, said, quote, "It appears Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and her associates ran an off-the-books operation to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars, thus violating the foundation of all campaign finance laws, transparency." Okay, so that's a pretty long article. I am not reading that entire thing. That is way, way too much, but you can feel free to read it for yourself. Sorry about that. Okay, so before this story actually broke out, I saw that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, I had heard through the grapevine that she had her boyfriend on payroll, and basically what she did is she paid a company thousands of dollars to make ads for her. He then becomes he starts working for that company. They send him they send him money, and then he resigns from the company. Or he might have been contracted by the company or something like that. So basically just weird shifting of money to imply that the tax dollars or the money is being moved around and laundered, basically. This is all alleged, I suppose. I have to keep it. I hope Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez doesn't come suing me. But this is what I'll end on. This is a story. This story, I think, it shows very much of what's going on. There's two classes, it seems to be. It seems to be, so long as you're on the right side of that class line, the laws don't affect you anymore. And I feel we have a problem with that. I feel that we have been accepting people and treating them almost like royalty. I was going to pull up an article of Lady Gaga on the Oscars. She was wearing a $50 million dress, she was wearing a million, I think it was $50 million necklace with a diamond on it. And this is the same type of person that I believe Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is, because for all these people's elaborate speeches of, oh my God, we need to help the poor, and everybody gives the biggest speeches and everybody's the most compassionate when you talk to them. But when it really comes down to it, they're funneling money. They're wearing $50 million necklaces now. In fairness to Lady Gaga, it wasn't hers. She just, I believe she borrowed it. But still wearing $1,000 dresses. These people have the most elaborate lives, and they don't live, and they live these lives, and they tell people, do as I say, not as I do. And the problem that I have is that people respect them as royalty, and they treat them as though they deserve that. I mean, people were fawning over Lady Gaga. That's all I see is people fawning over them. And Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, as far as I can see, I think she's going to get away with this dirty money stuff, the same way as the Clintons did. And to take it to a much darker tone, I haven't seen the documentaries, but apparently I guess the wool is being pulled over on these people, or not the wool, the rug is being pulled out from under these people, but they were being treated the same way too. And I just think we need to be very careful of who we put on a pedestal. I'm talking about the case, of course, of Michael Jackson's Leaving Neverland, I believe the documentary is called. And R. Kelly is being found guilty of all of these things, and he's being tried, and he's back in jail and back out of jail for more cases of violating minors. But the theme that I saw with that is that everybody knew. Everybody knew. So I'm gonna just leave it there and just say we as people need to understand. We need to not fall into the cult of personality. We can't just follow people religiously, and we need to apply the rules fairly. We need to apply the rules fairly and the same amongst everyone, or we will be warring with ourselves. I really wish I had a happier message to go by. I hope that everything sounds good on this one. I am in a new studio. No, I'm not. I'm away from home, but I hope everything worked out. I got a different microphone. Everything's different here. I'll probably be back in the home studio next week. I don't have much else to say. I wish I had something a little more lighthearted to go on there, but follow me on Twitter at Based Sammy Sosa. Like and subscribe the show if you want to have more. Hopefully there's more. Well, I'm sure there'll be more news to come by Sunday. Either way, we'll all figure this out. I'm sure if at the very least I can follow Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's Twitter and see something dumb that she said. Also, apparently Ilhan Omar is an anti-Semite. I don't know how much. I can't get into it. I've already said goodbye. So without further ado, everyone, goodbye, good day, go away. I don't like you anymore. Peace out. Be good. Adios.